Okay, just a couple of ideas about the parasha. So just to start, Parashat Ekev, as I said yesterday in Shul, is all about how wonderful the land of Israel is. Eretz Zabat Halab Udbash, a land flowing with milk and honey. And then we said the seven fruits of Israel, the seven produces. Eretz Chitas Orav Egefen Ut Enav Limon Eretz Zet Shem Udbash. Now, I think I told you this last year, but do you remember what I said? Yanid, you might remember. How do you know which fruit goes first? If you have a bunch of fruit, what do you make a beracha first? Remember this? Didn't we talked about this once? No. Okay, ready for this? You should know this. This is a good piece of information. If you have a bowl of fruit, you're supposed to make the beracha on the fruit from Israel first. This is why on Rosh Hashanah night it says apples and the honey first, but there's no chance I'm doing apples and the honey first. Because apple is not one of the seven fruits of Israel, and there are other fruits that are the fruits of Israel. So Chacham Ovadia says you can't do the apple first. The Mikubalim, first of all, the whole apple thing is not even in the Gemara. It's not there. It's a whole new thing. And the Ashkenazim do it, and then the Hida, the Ben Ish Hai says, yeah, it's the apple orchard, the Kabbalistic orchard. Okay, I understand, but it's not a fruit of Israel. So I go by Chacham Ovadia, and my Syrian family, they can disown me if they want. I'm doing the date first. Why the date? Because we also have a pomegranate. Pomegranate is also one of the seven fruits. So you know the rule? Here's the rule. Gemara says, if you have multiple fruits from Israel, which one goes first? You follow the order of the pasuk. So you just have to know these two pasukim by heart. No, there's one pasuk by heart, right? So I'll do it for you again. Eretz Hita Osora Vegefen Utena Verimon Eretz Zechem Ubash. This is the pasuk. You have to know this pasuk by heart. Okay? Eretz Hita Osora Vegefen. Good. Utena. No. Figs. You know that in the yeshiva they used to say, how do you know the difference? Tena and Tamar. Because you can date Tamar, but you can't, right? You can date Tamar, but you can't eat Tena. So date Tamar. So again, Te'ena is a fig, Verimon, a pomegranate, Eres, Zet Shemen, olives, oil, Udbash, honey from. It's most people say from the dates. So the honey would be the dates. Rashi says the goats munch on the dates, and the honey drifts from the dates, the sweetness drifts from the dates, and mixes with the goat milk, and that's the land flowing the milk. That's what Rashi said. Okay. The date is last, so why do I do it first? Yours question? You know the answer? You have to know this. The date is last in the pasuk. So why did I say I put the date first on Rosh Hashanah, not the pomegranate? No. They're both, and the limon is also high. Why am I putting the date before the pomegranate? Because the Gemara says, it says the word eretz twice in the pasuk. Let's do it one more time. You gotta know this pasuk by heart. It's by Rosh Hashanah, you better memorize it. Eretz Hita Usora Tegefen Utena Verimon. A land of those five things. And then it says Eretz. It says the land again. What do you have to say Eretz again? Just continue the list. Eretz Zet Shemen Udbash. So whatever is closest to the word Eretz goes first. There's two Eretzes. So wheat is close to the first Eretz. Wheat is the first thing. So if you have bread, bread always goes first. That's why bread goes before grape juice usually. So that's why we cover the bread. Kiddush. Barley would be second to the word eretz. It's also mizonot, right? Mizonot we always do first. Okay, eretz chitas rabbe gefen. The grape would be third. 3 words removed from the word eretz. But if you look at the second eretz zet shemen, the olive is number 1 next to the eretz. It's very high, and dvash, the date, is now 2. So the date, which is 2 from the word eretz, comes before all the first fruits. After chitas ora, chitas ora is 2. So the other 3 fruits are all going to be later on from the word eretz. That makes sense? So the order would be Hita and possibly Zayit. It's a question because Zayit is also position number 1 from the second word eretz. But Hita Seora, because Mizunot goes first. And then you go to the second word, eretz. Zet shemen, duvash, and go back to the first word. Gefen, te'ena, v'nimon. Okay, so by Rosh Hashanah, you use this at the table, and you explain to your family why we're changing our custom, and we're no longer doing the apple first. We're doing the date first. Good? Okay. Now, okay, now. It doesn't matter what people like. It doesn't matter. As Ben Shapiro says, facts don't care about your feelings. Yeah? Okay. So now, Rav Kook says something interesting. Says Rav Kook, and Uncle Jack, you mentioned this to me a couple of years ago, I think. You did. Rav Kook says something interesting. If we look at these fruits of Israel, especially the second set, Eretz Zetshem and Udvash, not all these fruits are readily edible, number one. Which one of these things can you just pluck out and eat right away? If you think about it. The date you could eat right away, and pomegranate you could eat, but you can't eat the outside. It's kind of bitter. You have to crack it open and then you get the seeds. Really, the fig is just ready to go. The wheat has to be processed. The barley has to be processed. The olive has to be squeezed. The grape has to be squeezed because it doesn't say anavim. It says gefen, which means it's not praising the grape. It's praising really the wine of the grape. It has to be processed. The fig is ready to go, but almost everything else, and Rav Kook actually holds that the honey is not like Rashi says. Date honey, he holds it's bee honey. There are some who hold that the honey is bee honey. And so that's also, you have to go get it from it's not like it doesn't even grow on a tree. That's number one. And so, number two is Rav Kook. Look at for example, let's start with the milk. Eretz Savad Halav Udvash, a land flowing with milk and honey. The Gemara Nida says that biologically, I'm not sure if science synced up with this Gemara yet, but the Gemara says biologically, where does a woman's milk come from? How does she have a steady supply of milk? So the Gemara Nida says the milk is blood. The blood, it could be her menstrual blood, and that might explain why nursing is it stops the period from coming. Could be. This is my own thoughts. Could be because all the blood that was going to come is coming out as milk. It's true. So the milk was blood. Blood is not allowed to be eaten. Blood is asur. Yet, and blood is like the death. And yet, milk nourishes life and is kosher. Woman's milk is kosher. You're not allowed to drink milk straight from a woman, but if she puts it into a cup, for example, you can drink women's milk is kosher. It's part also. It's like almond, yeah. So, number one, says Rav Kook, it's amazing. What are we praising Israel? Look at the things we praise Israel for. A land flowing with milk, which was tameh, and somehow converts in the body and becomes not only kosher, life-sustaining, and the second one, honey, which I know you asked me about a couple of years ago. If you hold the honey is from the bee, a bee is not kosher. Usually the rule is anything that comes from a not kosher animal is not kosher. Camel milk is not kosher. So why is bee honey kosher? You know? Why is bee honey kosher? It comes from a not kosher animal. Uncle Jack, you remember you said this to me? No? So bee honey is kosher, says the Gemara. Why is bee honey kosher, Yari? Why is bee honey kosher? Bee is not kosher. What? Yes. I'm going to just fix it a little bit. Because the Gemara says, because the bee does not process, it's not waste, it's not an excretion of the bee. He collects the nectar in his mouth and he holds it. That's what you're saying. He holds it, but he doesn't manufacture it. The bee doesn't manufacture the honey. He's holding it in the stomach and there's a chemical inside him that converts the nectar into honey, but it's not called a byproduct of the bee. That's kind of what you said, right? But it comes from a not kosher animal. And yet it's kosher. And it's a great question. So The bee or the honey, or is honey the only thing you're saying? Milk is the only other example. It comes from a kosher animal, but it was not kosher. So bee would be honey would be the only thing they can actually think of that comes from a not kosher animal. Can't eat a bee. I'm saying milk. They bring milk because milk was blood. That's what they're saying. And human. The Gemara says human milk because you can't eat a human. So that's another example. You got that, Avi? Okay. Human milk. Human milk is another example. Human flesh is not kosher, but human milk is kosher. Good luck. It's a kosher species though. It was invalidated to eat, but it's a kosher species. Yeah, the milk will be kosher. So not only are these two things coming from not kosher sources, and they're kosher, they're praised. This is the items we choose to praise Israel. Like it should be enough to be like, you know what? You can have like the fake bacon. We should praise it. We should say like this is like the feature of the kiddush in the shul. The feature of the kiddush in the shul, kosher bacon. I used to work for Kehila when I first moved to LA. I was looking for a job. I worked for Kehila Kashrus, and they didn't allow bacon to be on the advertising. But even if it's kosher bacon, you can't say bacon. They didn't let at the time. I don't know what they do now. RCC has whole different rules. Kehila was stricter. It's a true. So they didn't let bacon. You advertise this. What are we advertising? A land flowing with milk and honey, which come from a disgusting bee that you can't eat, and milk that was blood. Not only that, if you look at the other items, I want to read you a Gemara, and this is what I'm afraid of. I'm scared of you today, Avi. I'm going to read you a Gemara on Horayot. Gemara, I think you might have heard this Gemara already, but check it out. Says the Gemara. Tanur Banan, we learn. Hamisha Devarim Mishakihim et Limud. There are 5 things that make you forget what you study. All right, Avi? There are 5 things that make you forget what you study. Number 1. Ha'ochel mima she'ochel achvar u'mima she'ochel hatul. If you eat food that a cat or a rodent ate from, you have a pet cat at home and the cat nibbled some of the bread, you cannot eat the rest of the bread. It's kosher bread, but it'll make you forget what you studied. Now, this is obviously maybe supernatural or whatever. This is, take it as you wish. Number 2, ha'ochel lev shel behema. Someone who eats the heart of a kosher animal. And I know that's a big, yeah, but it'll make you forget. I know that there's a big movement now in the what's the movement with the diet, the carnivore diet. Yeah. These guys are all about eating the heart, the internal organs, and the heart. It says it'll make you forget what you learned. You can eat it. Yeah, all these things are kosher, but it causes. Hopefully. Veharagil bezetim. Someone who eats a lot of olives makes you forget your learning. Ve'ashote mayim shel shiurei rechitza. One who drinks the leftover bath water. Ve'aroches raglav zo al gavei zo. Someone who washes his feet one right on top of another. One foot right on top of that. That's how he washes his feet. Not like standing. Yeah. This is the one you're picking up. You can forget your Torah. That's what it says. Ve'eshomrim. Some people say, yeah, mostly food, and then there's other things also. I'm going to say. Ve'eshomrim. Some people say, Af haminiach kelav tahat mena'ashotav. If someone uses their clothing as a pillow, using your clothing as a pillow under your head when you want to sleep, you want to roll up your jacket, it can cause you to forget. Obviously, I know my customers. There's other things that are added. No, you dodge a bullet. You dodge an assassination bullet. Uh, there's other things that the rabbis add, not in this place. When you, for example, when you wash your hands, to dry your hands on your shirt while we're talking about clothing, my son does it all the time. It drives me crazy. There's a towel right there. Just drying your hands on your shirt. Tanura banan. So hold on one second. So let me just do the shirt thing first. While we're talking about clothing, the Beis High writes, if you dry your hands on your shirt, it can cause poverty. It's disgrace. It's not nice to your clothing, and your clothing represents your opulence and your wealth. And so you should never dry your hands on your shirt. Okay, that was that. While we're talking about the clothing. Now, Rav Chaim Kanievsky, who just passed away a few years ago, he wrote a sefer. I think it's called Sefer Hazikaron. I think it's called all about these things, and he talks about these things. What is halakha l'maaseh? What is not? Let's just continue reading, Avi, because we're not done. Hamisha devarim meshivim et halimud. There are now 5 things that can help you back to remember what you forgot. So it's a 5 things. Pat behamim, bread that was charcoal, bread on the barbecue, bread on the fire, hot bread that was on charcoal. For sure, the charcoal itself. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Eating a lightly roasted egg without salt. Someone who eats olive oil. It's good for your memory. Yeah, exactly. Someone who has wine and fragrances. Someone who drinks the leftover water from making the dough. Start that. Some people say even if you dip your hand in salt and one finger in salt and eat it. Says Rabbi Yohanan, if someone eats too many olives, he can forget his studies from 70 years of studying. But if he eats olive oil, it's the antidote. And he'll remember the studies from 70 years. Okay. You want more things or should we move on? A few more things? Okay. Let's do a couple more things. You want more things, Uncle Jackson? All right. 10 things cause it very hard to learn. Someone who passes under, it says in the article, the halter of a camel. I believe it's the leash. The leash. They don't call it a leash. The reins of a camel. For sure, if someone goes under a camel. That's why the Arabs are. No black cap here. Ha'obed ben shenei gimalim. Someone who passes between 2 camels, as Arabs say. Passes between 2 camels. Yeah. The ha'obed. This one is important. And I try to do this one as much as I try to observe this one. Ha'oved ben shetin nashim, a man who passes between 2 women. And conversely, ha'isha ha'oved ben shenei anashim, or a woman passing between 2 men, which is like just don't mingle, you'll be okay. So Rav Chaim Kanievsky talks about this. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld talks about this. I believe Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld says it doesn't apply to people walking around. It applies to people standing in place and walking right in between them. But if they're like at a party or a social event, watch me. I'm going to get my hamim on Shabbat. 2 women are sitting and chatting. I'm not going to go in between the women. I'll go around one. And same thing for women. Okay. More? Okay. If someone passes and smells a dead carcass, don't tell me what this, don't ask me what this one means. I didn't research this one. Someone who walks under a bridge that no water has passed for 40 days.
Dry river.
Forget learning. That causes difficulties in learning. Difficulties in learning. Someone who eats raw cookie dough bread, raw bread that's not cooked. It's not. There's eggs in there. Yeah, the water is good, not the bread. This one I don't know what it means either. That's why I brought this article. I'm going to read what the article said. Someone eats meat from the grease spoon, which means the big mixing spoon. It's a big question what this means. Chaim Kaniasi says, what does it mean if there's meat stuck on the spoon, or to use the spoon in your plate? Not sure what it means exactly. Someone who drinks from a cemetery, from water that passes right through a cemetery. I met someone who stares at a corpse. Some people say even people who read what's engraved on the tombstones. Now, this is a big question. Yeah. Some people say it means it's the difference between if it's engraved. So I'm in the print business in my other job, right? So there's something called embossed and debossed. So some people will say there's a difference. If it's embossed, which means it's engraved, it's okay. But if it's debossed, which means the letters are protruding, it's not okay. Or Chaim Kanievsky says that when it says koreh, does it mean out loud or does it mean read it to yourself with your eyes? Some people say if you put the rock on top, it wards off the whole thing. Put the rock, I don't know. He doesn't remember it. He has a hard time learning. So all these things have to be addressed, obviously. But I want to go back to what I was talking about. So something for you to think about. All the descriptors of the land of Israel, of all the things you could have chosen, like we said on Shabbat yesterday, you could have just chosen delicious tangerines and avocados and sabra and the grapefruit. Easy, very easy. Like low-hanging fruit, no pun intended. Instead, we choose milk, which was blood, honey, which was a bee, which is not kosher, olive oil, which is the olives will cause you to forget what you learned. By the way, if you want to know how to say with the olives, Chaim Kanievsky is very strict. He holds halakha l'maaseh on the olives, and he writes you shouldn't have olives more than once a month. Says Chaim Kanievsky. It's so many different opinions. The Ben Ish Chai says it doesn't say ha'ochel zayit. It says haragil. If you have accustomed to olive, which means hazakah, 3. So Ben Ish Chai says if you have 2, it's okay. But it doesn't say if he needs 2 olives, 2 days in a row olives. It doesn't say exactly what he's talking about.
Once a month.
Chaim Kanievsky held once a month. Chaim said once a month. There's a story even I saw that one rabbi wrote for Chaim a letter and said, "You ruined my breakfast. I used to have olives every day for breakfast. I can't eat breakfast anymore because of you." But Chacham Ovadia says, just make sure you have olives in the olive oil, because if you have the olives inside the olive oil, it's immediately going to make the olives okay. Sell the olive oil too. You make more panasa. Adam, Avi, you're a Jew. Come on. Here, buy this poison and don't forget to buy the antidote. Buy the olive oil. Come on. Some people say that if the olives that we're talking about, olives in this Gemara, are raw olives, R-A-W, raw olives, which is going to lead me to my next thing. Has anyone here ever tried a raw olive? You cannot eat a raw olive. There's a couple of chemicals. What are they called? I wrote it down. Oleuropein. There's a chemical inside raw olive. You cannot eat raw olives. It's not edible. Disgusting, right? You've tried it? Horrible. Yeah. It's not edible.
It's beyond disgusting.
Olives are only sold in brine. They're always pickled or in brine or salted or in something. Why? You can't eat them. And so that's another part. So again, with the olives, number one, it's not even food until we process it. It's really must be Hashem really created for its oil, which is why it says Eretz Zet Shemen Udbash. We figured out a way how to use the olives. There's a very interesting I put into the Meta AI in the WhatsApp. Who figured out how to eat olives? If you can't eat it off the tree, how did they learn that And so there's a theory that they found sailors were in the ocean and they found olives in the water and they tried to eat them and they saw it was good. And I said, why are the olives from the water good, but the olives from the tree not good? If we put salt and water on them, it turns them around magically. But then they said this has been debunked because they found the olives way earlier from before, away from the shore and all that. So I don't know who discovered, the Jewish people, I don't know who discovered that olives can be eaten, but from the tree they can't. So again, Rav Kook is saying, look at the scriptures of Israel. It's all almost inedible. And then, yeah, there's a way to figure out how to use it. And this is what you're praising the land about. It's going to forget your learning. You can't, it's bitter. And this is what you're praising the land about. And then I'm going to add another thing. Eretz zavat halav udvash. We always say this. It's a land flowing of milk and honey. The word zava is usually not a good word. A zava is a word for a nida, an impure woman, or a zav is a word for an impure man. It means flowing. There was a seminal thing flowing from a man, or there was menstrual stuff from a woman. It's a tameh word even in the whole Torah. Where do you see the word zava in the whole Torah? More than that, Hashem will give you lemons. You got to make lemonade. The land, huh? The Jewish people, everything. And then my son yesterday told me, he said vanilla, the vanilla bean, because we were talking about the vanilla bean, which is like, I think the most expensive bean on earth, because the vanilla bean, I love vanilla. The vanilla bean has to be manipulated by hand because the female and the male parts of the flower, they don't pollinate by nature. The bugs, the bees don't get there where the vanilla is grown. This is just the whole side thing. It's fascinating. That's why vanilla is so expensive. But don't buy the imitation. You have to buy the real vanilla. It's very expensive. Why? Someone put it on YouTube after this. Watch a documentary. Someone has to go in there and physically connect the male and the female parts of every bean, right? And so my son tells me that he just read that they thought the vanilla bean was created by like the Aztec Indians, and then they just found in Israel like a 3,000-year-old pot, and inside of it they did DNA testing. It's vanilla. So everything comes from us. Yet we didn't praise the land of Israel, a land flowing with vanilla. So again, the land. So think about this pasuk. A land flowing, zava, is already a negative word in the Torah usually, with milk which was blood, with honey which was bees, and the olives, zet shemen. I can't even eat the olives. All this stuff is like horrible. We in Barney had to process it. The only thing is the fig. The pomegranate, I could eat the seeds, but I can't even. Who figured that out? I don't know who figured that out. The pomegranate, it's horrible, the outside. The fig is the only thing on the list. The fig you can have, and yet this is how Hashem praises the land of Israel. You see the power of the land of Israel? The power of the land of Israel, if we use it the right way. And this is what I was saying yesterday. When we think about the land of Israel, it's given to us. It's not our land. It's Hashem's land, and it's on consignment to us. If we treat the land the right way, all these things will turn around for the best, and we'll figure out how to make lemonade out of all these lemons. But if you don't use the land the right way, it says straight out in the Bible, it will spit you out. The land is so that when we see people go to the parades and they say, it's my homeland, it's really not your land. It's God's land. It's not your land. It's your father's land, and he lets you stay in the house as long as you follow his rules. And if you don't follow his rules, there's the door. God forbid. God forbid. There's the door. This is the land of Israel. And also, in the same pasuk which I said yesterday, again, the pasuk goes, Eretz hita us'ora v'gefen ut'ena v'rinwan. Also the gefen, right? You have to process it. Eretz zet shemen udvash. Eretz asher lo b'miskenut tochal lechem lo tichsad kol ba, which means a land which you will eat bread but not due to poverty. Eretz asher lo b'miskenut tochal lechem. And the Ben Ish Chai says the bread in Israel is delicious. The Ben Ish Chai says it's delicious. And I find it unbelievable that we're still today dipping pita bread in olive oil and za'atar, which happens to be, the Ben Ish Chai says in another place, The za'atar is the sigula against the evil eye. And we dip bread in the oil. The two things from Israel, they're very easy, not fancy. Bread in the oil, we still do it. You're going to eat bread from Israel, not because you're poor, because there's nothing missing in the land, only because it's delicious. Which I said yesterday in Shul. Its stones are iron dome. And from its mountains, they mine copper. Now I have a question for you. So this is praising the land of Israel with iron and copper. Remember Parashat Kitavo? Parashat Kitavo talks about the curses. God forbid. All the bad things that will happen if you don't follow. And what does it say? I will make your stones barzel, and I'll make the heavens nehusha. You just praise the land that its stones are iron, and you're saying, if you don't listen, I'm going to make those stones iron. Have this question right in your face. You just praised it. Is it a curse or is it a blessing? Later in Vizat Beracha, after Ulashir Amad, we say, Barzel and Hoshet min alecha uchiyamecha duvecha. Barzel and Hoshet min alecha. Iron and copper is your lot. So it's a good thing. So why is it part of the curses? The answer is, it depends on you. It depends on you. Yes, you have iron. What do you do with the iron? Is the iron dome? Or is the iron a missile? God forbid that hits you, God forbid. And we're seeing it now. It's a very dangerous time today, right now. They're exchanging missiles with Lebanon, right? Which one is it? It depends on us. Are we following Abba's rules? He has a house, he lets us stay here, but I got house rules. You gotta follow the house rules. You don't follow the house rules, it's my house. All these things in the Pasuk can go for the bad. They look like they're bad, but they can be used for the good. And that's dafka, what we praise the land of Israel. I will go a step further. Even the people of the land of Israel, rough people, we're not pushovers. The people of the land of Israel, Jews, Am Kishei Oref, we're stubborn, hard-necked people. But that could be for the good and for the bad. We're all double-edged sword. Each one of us is a double-edged sword. No Jew is a pushover. We're tough people. It could be good or it could be bad. The people in Israel are tough people. They could be good, they can squeeze oil, or they can be fire. We say yesterday, Hashem sent hornets to sting our enemies. We had an army of hornets sting our enemies, and it blinded them with its poison, with its venom, special hornets. And hornet honey. Is hornet honey kosher? Avi? There's a question in the Gemara whether bee honey is kosher or any flying insect honey is kosher. Halakha Ma'aseh says the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch, Yoreh De'ah, Siman 81. Hornet honey is kosher. Wasp honey is kosher. Any of these things that can sting, the honey from them is kosher. You can flip it around, it could sting me, and it could give me the most delicious honey. And so Israel is no different. It encapsulates what Israel is all about. The rocks of Israel, the produce of Israel, the people in Israel. They can sting you, it can be horrible, it can be bitter, or it could be the most sweetest thing on earth, and it could be kosher. Depends what we do with it. That's Israel. I asked the question I didn't answer yesterday. Why do we have 7 species? Why don't we list 8 things in the pasuk? Why only 7? I didn't answer the question yesterday. So the Zohar says, the Arizal, not the Zohar, the Arizal writes, it's corresponding to the 7 sefirot, the 7 midot, chesed, gevurah. There are 7 different aspects, and also for the 7 ushpizim. Could be the 7 days of the week as well, or it could be for the 4 mothers and the 3 fathers, the avot and the imam. We have to remember our parents, and so every time you have breakfast and you dip the bread, the chita, in the olive oil with the za'atar, you say, am I following the path of the 4 mothers and the 3 fathers? If I'm following the path, this is going to be delicious lechem, like I said yesterday. Otherwise, the word lechem also means milchama, war. Right? We said yesterday what? How many permutations did I say yesterday? You have the same three letters. Lechem, remember them all? Lechem is bread. Lohem is war. Hamol, melach is salt that you dip the bread in. Hemla, hamol, is compassion. Mohel is to forgive. The same three letters. Meholot is dances. It's all the same three letters. And this is what the lechem. The land of Israel, it depends. How we read these three letters is completely up to you. So Hashem says, and that's why it's beautiful. The Torah has no dots in the actual scroll. Here's three letters. I'm not telling you how to read it. How we read it is completely up to you. You want lechem? No problem. You want milhama? You can also read it. Lohem. Melach. Three times Hashem's name is Melach. That's what we did. Three times. We did it three times. Melach is Mem is 40, and Lamed is 30. That's 70, and Hayt is 8, 78. We dip Melach three times to sweeten the bread and the Melach three times to sweeten the Gibura, the Matikat Adinim. There's a whole class on YouTube. We dip the bread and the Melach three times, and it's Limatik Itadinim. There's a class on YouTube from Max, all about this, all about salt. Put the salt of Sedom in YouTube. And so therefore, the land of Israel is encapsulating in this. And that's what I'm thinking about. And that's what I've been thinking about all weekend. This is when I think about Eretz Chita, because every time I eat something, I say, Eretz Chita Ora. The land of Israel. Is it gonna be bitter or is it gonna be delicious? It's completely up to us. And it makes me very sad. Because I'm looking at the people on the land, not all the people. Look at the leaders of the land, the direction of the land, where's it going? And I think to myself, how can we be successful? I want to be successful, but how can we be successful? Most of the leaders are completely against what Hashem believes. I don't know. We need Yeshua. Burgers.
Some places had kosher when we opened a Shabbat. This place was obviously not extremely not cheeseburger. And then
Oh, it's not much not kosher.
The meat's not going to eat forever. And there's everything.
We went to Israel and in all of Tel Aviv,
One kosher place.
Are you serious?
One kosher place.
Yeah.
We went to Israel in all of Tel Aviv.
It's not here.
But Tel Aviv,
We need to turn it around, guys. That's how we're going to win the war. We need to figure this out. And I think my heart breaks. Most of the things that we see people marching or on the parades or putting on TikTok or Instagram.
Never met a man who wouldn't even give me his name. He's so bitter. But I still bitter that all the spirits inside of the house all of it. And he said it because of your Judaism. It's the Judaism that has made us have all this.
This is what we need to fix. This is what we need to
And it
fix.
was really entrenched in the that there's a whole bunch of that it's not Israel, it's the Judaism that's causing us this problem.
Yeah, that's
If we only got rid of the Judaism, we would have no problem. That's the Zionist movement.
It's unfortunately it looks like half the country at least. This is the problem. And again,
It's actually not.
You think it's less? I hope it's less. I don't know.
But it's French. That Judaism has to be Islam in order to have peace, which is exactly the opposite.
Which is it? Because if you remove the Judaism, the land will spit you out.
That's the Zionist movement
But
that they succeeded in brainwashing the population.
that's what happened in 1939 also. They decided not to do
Yeah,
Jewish.
actually, the Zionist movement, but that's the truth.
This is why a little pet peeve of mine is that we call ourselves Yisraelim now. Because they're missing one really important word. Bnei Yisrael. We're children. We're supposed to follow the fathers. That's the most important word in the whole thing. It's all about the avot and the imahot, tradition. We forget, if we forget we're children, Bnei Yisrael.
Muslim mosque and show their breasts. But they do it as a Jewish person in Tel Aviv because they truly believe that their enemy is not them. This is our enemy is the God itself. It's a very crazy.
We have I don't know how we're going to fix it. This is our job. I don't know what we have to fix this. One last thing on this theme of Eretz Israel, what I think is a fascinating Rambam. And then with this, we'll close, and then we'll see you tonight, hopefully later, because we have another class tonight. Ekev-israel. Ekev-israel, this is like a very popular thing. The kids come home from school saying, ekev-israel. Ekev means when or because, but Ekev also means a heel, and Rashi is a very well-known Rashi. If you follow even the mitzvot that people step on, then you'll be okay. Because there's certain mitzvot, commandments people step on. First Rashi in the. And so, listen to this Rambam. So, which mitzvot? Rashi doesn't say, for example, what? Wouldn't it be nice if Rashi said, for example, mitzvah A, B, and C, which people don't do, you should make sure to do. It doesn't say which ones. Which ones are the kalot? Which one is the mitzvah kalot that people think are nothing? And so this unbelievable Rambam. Where is this Rambam located? In his Pirush on the Mishnayot. Because the Rambam has a Pirush, an explanation on the Mishnah. Which Mishnah? Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot says as follows. It says, Heve Zahir, Rabbi Omer, Heve Zahir b'mitzvah kala k'b'hamura. Pirkei Avot Mishnayot, yeah. Yeah, it's a Masechet Mishnayot. Yeah, in the Zikin. Heve Zahir b'mitzvah kala sheb'hamura. Says in Pirkei Avot, you should be careful for the lenient mitzvot, like the strict mitzvot. What are the lenient mitzvot? Again, which ones are the lenient mitzvot that people step on that we should be careful to watch after? Rambam says what I think is unbelievable. Says Rambam in his explanation, Tzarich lizaher b'mitzvah, you have to be very careful with the commandment, sheyachshev ba shu kala, that you would think it's very lenient and easy, kisimhat haregel, like being happy on the holiday, which people think, big deal, be happy. No, you have to be happy. I think the Vilna Gaon, he said this is the hardest mitzvah in the whole Torah. I think the Vilna Gaon said, to be happy the whole holiday? It's the hardest. How do you be happy the whole holiday, 25 hours in a row, and be happy? So that's one example, and he has one more. Second, says the Rambam, Lemidat Lashon HaKodesh, learning Hebrew, learning the Hebrew language. Learning the Hebrew language. It's not even one of the mitzvot in the Sefer HaMitzvot. The Sefer Torah Temimah, where did I get that? I don't know this Rambam. Torah Temimah, Rabbi Epstein, who wrote this Chumash over here, he quotes this Rambam and he says, I'm bewildered. Why does the Rambam? He says, Rashi, if you look at the pasuk in Shema, you should teach your sons. That's what it says. You should teach them to speak in them. To speak in what? Says Rashi, Melamed Misha'ah she'aben yodea. As soon as a son knows, see, it all connects to the other one. I didn't think about that, the halakha thing. From when they reach the age of understanding, this is also very famous Rashi. What is the first thing you teach your kid? No. Torah Sivala Moshe. Yeah? Torah, Sivala Moshe. It's the first thing you teach your kid. Yeah? I hope. Misha'ah, my kid's a cocoa melon. Misha'ah she'aben yodea ledaber. As soon as a kid knows how to speak, listen to this Rashi. Lamedeo, teach him Torah Siva Lanu Moshe. The Torah was from Moshe. That should be the first thing he learns. Mikan Amru, this is why we said, What is that she's saying? Ledaber bam, to speak in it, in them. From here we say, as soon as he speaks, Aviv Mashiach imo belashon hakodesh. His father should talk to him in Hebrew, umelamedo Torah, and teach him Torah in Hebrew. Says the Torah to him. This is a Gemara. The Gemara says the first thing you should teach your son is Torah Sivan Moshe. It doesn't say in Hebrew. The Torah says, he says, where'd you get this from? There's a midrash that says Bilashon HaKodesh. You have to say, do I have to teach it to him in Hebrew? I can't say the Torah is from Moshe. Why does it have to be in Hebrew? So the Rabbi Epstein brings this Rambam. He says, look at the Rambam. He says, learning the language of Hebrew is one of the most important things that nobody cares about. And me personally, I grew up in the No, Rashi didn't get it from the Rambam. No, Rashi didn't get it from the Rambam. But in other words, Rabbi Epstein says Rashi is choosing here Lashon HaKodesh from where, and then he says, I have a Rambam. He says, go look at the Rambam, who he also says how important it is to look at Hebrew. That's where I got that. I would never have found this Rambam otherwise. Rabbi Epstein puts this Rambam, and Rabbi Epstein asks, and he says, I don't understand why he doesn't write in his laws of teaching children to say Hebrew, because he says over here, if you go to Rambam, when he says you have to teach your children Torah, he doesn't say in Hebrew. So Rabbi said, why doesn't he say in Hebrew like he writes on the Mishnah? And so he says, maybe Rambam holds only if you're living in the land of Israel, you have to teach Hebrew, because what's he supposed to do speaking Hebrew in Syria? Maybe Rambam had different stages. When he was living in Israel, he wrote this. When he was living not in Israel, he wrote that. He doesn't understand. I put it into the meta AI. I was having a fun time with this meta AI. Teach your children in the whole language. I wrote back, are you are you sure? He says, sorry, my apologies. I made a mistake. Rambam doesn't say in the holy language. Thank you for correcting me. What? What's that? So then it said, however, we found in the Igeret Tashmad, in the letter that Rambam wrote, he says you should always teach in Hebrew. I said back, can you send me the source? It says, sorry, I made a mistake. He actually doesn't say. So even the Meta AI, I'll show you on my phone. He's confused with what the Rambam holds. And then I asked lots of other questions. I corrected it 100 times this week. I gave a class I taught him a lot of Torah to the Meta Facebook. It's a little messed up.
But the
Rashi says in Hebrew. From the Midrash. The Midrash says Hebrew, but the Gemara doesn't. And the Gemara was written in Babel. So says Torah Tamima, or Epstein, maybe it doesn't apply if you're living out of Israel. So the Gemara that's written in Babel doesn't say to teach in Hebrew. But the Rashi, I don't know. What's the point? Yerushalayim, it says Gemara Sukkah. I don't think it has this. I don't think it has it. What's my point with this? Just like we said, the land of Israel is a double-edged sword. You could take the holy thing and it can be bitter, or you can take the bitter thing and it can be holy. I have a personal pet peeve when it comes to the language of Hebrew, which, first of all, nobody calls it Lashon HaKodesh anymore. Now it's Safat HaIvrit, the Hebrew language. It's supposed to be the holy tongue. And when we have, like you're saying, you have people in Tel Aviv, Lo Aleinu, they don't know better, ordering a cheeseburger in Lashon HaKodesh, it hurts. This is the holy language. And so two things. Number one, for us here in America, in the yeshiva world that I grew up in, I didn't speak a lick of Hebrew. I didn't learn a lick of Hebrew. The more religious the school is here, the less Hebrew studies there is. Hebrew language. And a Hebrew language class. My wife thought I was crazy when she's like, you never took Hebrew class? Hebrew class? We're talking about the Learn Gemara all day. Hebrew class. I can speak to you in like, Moses, where art thou? I don't know, new Hebrew. We have to learn Hebrew. We have to learn Hebrew.
Isn't that Lashon HaKodesh?
Yeah, we have to, huh?
Whether to say money or just not, basically just this is what.
I think you're right, but
It's an intentional act.
I think you're right, Avi, but I have to say, Shomer Petition, because you can't, I don't want to talk bad about a whole
Rebelling.
half the Jews. No, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that.
Rebelling.
I think it's out. I know that, but we have to say Shomer Pitayim Hashem. You know, they don't know better. Everything in Hebrew, everything in even the language, even the stones, even the fruits, even the bees can be used for, even the people can be used to sting or can be used for blessing. It's completely up to us. That's what my takeaway from Parashat Ekev. There's